King Charles has ended up fighting himself, and that truth is now impossible to hide. For years, the public has been fed a simplified narrative that paints Prince Harry as the problem, as the disruptor, as the one who walked away and somehow deserves whatever consequences followed. But when you strip away the noise, the briefings, and the selective outrage, what remains is something far more human and far more uncomfortable for the palace. A monarch visibly torn between institutional caution and personal pain. That internal conflict is no longer speculation. It has been openly acknowledged by those closest to the situation, and it exposes just how unsustainable the current stance really is. The issue of Prince Harry's UK security has once again dragged this emotional stalemate into the spotlight. Officially, the justification has always been procedural. Harry is no longer a working royal, therefore his protection was downgraded and placed on a case-by-case basis. That explanation has been repeated so often it's meant to sound final. But the repeated disputes, legal challenges, and now renewed reports of security being nailed on tell a different story. This was never a settled matter. It was a decision under strain from the moment it was made. Prince Harry has been consistent about why this matters. It is not about privilege. It is not about optics. It is about safety and continuity. It is about ensuring that his children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, can spend time in the country that shaped him without risk. Critics love to twist this into entitlement, but that framing collapses when you remember one simple fact. The threats Harry faces did not disappear when his role changed. If anything, they intensified. Ignoring that reality does not make it go away. It only exposes the moral weakness of those pretending otherwise. Over the weekend, reports suggested that full arm protection may soon be reinstated. Multiple outlets described insiders as cautiously optimistic, with some going further and calling it a formality. The Mail on Sunday quoted Home Office sources indicating that security is effectively locked in. No official statement has been released yet, but the direction of travel is unmistakable. This is not about generosity. It is about correcting a decision that never sat comfortably with the facts. What makes this moment particularly revealing is the way it intersects with King Charles' own reported state of mind. According to respected royal editor Rebecca English, the king has been pained by the estrangement. That word matters. It acknowledges emotional cost. It acknowledges regret. And it directly contradicts the image of a detached monarch unmoved by the consequences of institutional rigidity. At the same time, we're told he remains extremely wary. Not indifferent, not hostile. Wary. That wariness is where the real conflict lies, because it isn't rooted in concern for Harry's well-being. It's rooted in fear of fallout, fear of leaks, fear of headlines, fear of losing control of the narrative. In other words, the danger is not reconciliation itself, but what reconciliation represents. An admission that the system failed, that mistakes were made, and that Harry's warnings were not only justified, but prophetic. Let's be clear about something. Prince Harry did not invent these tensions. He responded to them. He spoke openly about press intrusion, lack of protection, and institutional indifference long before stepping back. Every major claim he has made about media hostility and vulnerability has since been validated by events. Yet instead of accountability, he was met with suspicion. Instead of support, he was met with downgrades. That contradiction is what King Charles is now trapped inside. Those attacking Harry and Meghan will say that restoring security rewards bad behaviour. That argument is not just wrong, It's cynical. Security is not a prize. It is a safeguard. It exists to prevent harm, not to signal approval. Pretending otherwise is how critics justify indifference while pretending to stand on principle. It's a rhetorical trick, and it collapses under scrutiny. What we're witnessing now is the quiet undoing of that trick. If protection is reinstated, it will be because reality finally outweighed posturing. And it will also open the door, however cautiously, to more visits, more presence, and more opportunities for connection. That possibility is precisely what unsettles certain voices in the press. Because proximity makes caricatures harder to maintain. King Charles' dilemma is not whether he wishes his younger son well. That has already been answered. The dilemma is whether he is willing to accept the institutional consequences of doing so. Reconciling publicly would force acknowledgement of how mishandled this situation has been. It would raise questions about who advised what, who signed off on decisions, and who benefited from keeping distance intact. That is the danger palace insiders fear, not emotional closeness. And let's talk about Meghan for a moment, because her name is always dragged into these conversations as a convenient scapegoat. Every move Harry makes is framed as being influenced, controlled, or orchestrated by her. It's a tired, misogynistic trope that refuses to accept Harry's agency. Meghan has been consistent in supporting her husband's desire for safety, stability, and dignity. Demonizing her doesn't strengthen the argument against Harry. It only exposes how shallow that argument is. The reality is that Harry and Meghan have built a life grounded in protection of their children, transparency, and autonomy. That approach stands in stark contrast to the silent endurance model expected of them. When they refused to play that role, the backlash was swift. But backlash does not equal wrongdoing. Often it simply means boundaries were enforced where they were previously denied. So when critics scoff at the idea of reconciliation or warn of its supposed risks, they are really defending a status quo that benefits them. Division sells. Conflict clicks. Healing does not. King Charles knows this. That knowledge is part of what makes his position so painful. Choosing caution over connection may preserve headlines in the short term, but it deepens wounds in the long term. If security is indeed restored, it will mark more than a logistical change. It will signal that even the most rigid systems eventually have to bend to truth. It will show that Harry's insistence was not obstinance, but foresight, and it will underline just how unnecessary the years of resistance truly were. At Sussex Insights, we don't sugarcoat what's happening, and we don't echo palace spin. We look at patterns, at outcomes, and at who has consistently been proven right. On every major issue, from media hostility to personal safety, Harry and Meghan have been vindicated by time. Those still attacking them are not protecting tradition. They are protecting their own refusal to admit error. King Charles is pained because deep down he knows this. He knows that reconciliation carries risk not because of Harry, but because of what it exposes. And the longer it's delayed, the heavier that pain becomes. If you appreciate clear-eyed analysis that refuses to punch down or repeat tired talking points, make sure you support Sussex Insights by subscribing to the channel. Your support helps keep these conversations honest, informed, and unapologetically fair. Stay engaged, stay critical, and we'll see you in the next video.